Hi, I'm Guy Cantwell. Welcome to the Willoughby Line layout tour. The Willoughby Line is an HO scale double-deck layout depicting Western California prototypes, the Central Valley and the Western Sierra. The layout is divided into 12 scenes that depict the valley on the bottom deck and the Western Sierra Mountains on the top deck. I started this layout 12 years ago at the behest of some local train guides who convinced me that I should tear out my old layout and build a new layout based on this style. Today we're going to follow a train from the Willoughby Yard all the way around both decks up through the helix and to the end of the line. This is what you would do if you were operating the train in operations mode. This layout was built to host operating sessions, which can be thought of as basically chess with trains. So follow us along as we follow the local 34 up to Groveland. So this is engine number 34. This is a Westside brass model that has been painted and lettered for the Sierra 34, but it's a Fubi. The 34 is actually a different wheel arrangement. I ended up buying 3 of these locomotives because I liked them so much and I had to number them different numbers. The turntable that this is on is a scratch-built replica of the Jamestown turntable. So we're going to back the 34 onto its train, the local, which is going to go up to Groveland, which will take us through the valley all the way around the layout, up through the helix, and then all the way around the top of the layout, eventually ending in our destination. In the meantime, we have extra 4120 coming through with the oil train. Modesto had tracks in the middle of the street on 9th Street. And this was one of my favorite places to go watch trains when I was a kid. It was super cool to watch a train drive down the middle of the street. So I thought I'd replicate that here on the layout. Extra 4120 will keep number 34 in the yard until after the oil train is passed. With 4120 passed, the main is clear, and our extra 34 will now depart the yard and head towards Arvin. Here we are passing the icing station at Modesto. Every model railroader who likes reefer cars, it's a thing in model railroading, we all want the biggest icing station we possibly can. This one's about 5 feet long and it combines an icing dock as well as a cooling shed behind it. I found plans for this in an old model railroad magazine from many years ago. After passing the icing platform, Extra 34 is going to cross the 9th Street trestle. The prototype bridge spanned the Tuolumne River at the end of 9th Street in Modesto, California. This trestle is a good example of the iconic SP-style wooden trestles found throughout the San Joaquin Valley. This model is scratch-built from plans I found in the SP Standards book. Extra 34 has arrived at Arvin. Arvin is based loosely off of a Highway 99 sort of generic scene. We're waiting for the Fruit Express to come through. This scene is McCollamy Hill. This is a work in progress. Every layout has areas that aren't finished. Eventually we'll have a trestle here and a low foothills type scenery scene here. Of course, the running joke here would be that this was my modeling of the winter of 2016 for most of the Sierras. The use of the helix on a model railroad is somewhat controversial because the train runs for a long time out of sight. On a double deck layout, it's essential that you climb from one level to the next in some fashion. So for my helix, I decided to put hidden staging in it, Ys at the bottom and top, and run around it on 3 levels to try and get as much operational facility out of it as I possibly could. So we've completed our journey to the top of the helix, and now we're coming out at Hetchy Junction. Hetchy Junction is an actual prototype scene from the Sierra Railroad, where the Hetchy line split off to go up to O'Shaughnessy Dam, some 50 miles further away from this junction. This is one of the prototype scenes on the railroad that I've modeled and scratch built some of the buildings here, including the Sierra Station and a couple of the Hetchy buildings. There's also a miners camp, which is sort of a modified version of what existed at Hetchy Junction at the time. We'll wait here in the hole for a couple of proposing trains to pass and then continue our journey on up to Mather. Stock train has just passed, and now we're waiting for the timber train to come on down the hill. So our 2 trains have passed us, and now we're heading on towards Mather. Mountain King Mine is one of my favorite spots on the layout. This particular mine was on the Yosemite Valley Railroad. Jack Burgess supplied me with photographs and drawings, as well as people around the world who also had other images of the mine, and we put them all together to make this particular structure. So what we're looking at here is one of the classic issues with around the room layout design. Ideally, we would have big blobs and the doorway would be free, but in this case I didn't have room to do that, so I employed a variety of methods to cross the doorway. The first is a swing gate. This was designed from an article by Fred Heaton in Model Railroad Craftsman. Thank you, Fred. And the way this works is hinges here and it swings out, which allows for entry into the room. The second entryway is put in only during operating sessions, and it stays down here, and it basically consists of a lift-out section with an electrical connection here, and I'm a guitar player, so it's 1/4-inch phone jack. It goes in something like that, and then the electric connection is made that way. The third one is a duck under, which I leave in most of the time, but can be removed if you want to bring large objects in or are doing some other work in the room. And this one is clipped in here and will lift out as well. Both of these store underneath here when not in use. The swing gate is permanent. Next stop is Mather. This is probably the most prototypically accurate scene on the layout. The station and most of the buildings you see here are scratch built. There are a couple of vacation cabins that are built from photographs that I acquired online from the grandson of some people who met and got married after meeting on the train to Mather. So we'll take water here and then pull forward and wait for the log train to come through before continuing up the hill. This is Incline Mine. This is one of the more detailed areas in the layout currently. This mine is scratch built. The mine frame is from the Hearkening mine, plans published in the Gazette. The ore bin was scratch built from the Virginia City ore bin kit because I figured that the ore bin kit looked too difficult to build, so I thought I'd just scratch build it, thus making it easier. Turned out to probably be the same amount of work. And this mine serves as an industry for trains coming through to switch. Here we are at Emory. Emory existed on the Yosemite Valley line at a much lower elevation, and I decided to put granite rocks and completely change the scene, so it exists only in name. The other thing that we're looking at here is one of the quintessential issues with trains and helixes is how to scenic the top of a helix. And what the top of this scene does is it goes back about 24 inches, and then at the end of the trees there's dead air behind it so that I can reach up behind it. And the trick was to figure out how to get the elevations and how to get the sight angles so that it looked like it goes on for a long way and yet still leaves a crawl space behind the scene. So here we are at the end of the line, Groveland. You've gone 180 feet up the main line, all the way in the point-to-point mode. At this point, the locomotive would cut off and turn on the turntable to go back down the hill. Groveland on the Hetchy line was actually in the middle of the line, and I moved it to the end of the line because I felt that the engine terminal and the attendant facilities would make a better end point than middle point. The engine house has been scratch built from photographs of the engine house at Groveland. Many of the other structures in the area are prototype structures that have been hodgepodge from various railroads, including the Sierra, the Westside, and the YV. We need a way to turn the locomotive around to go back down the hill, and this is the turntable we use for that. This particular turntable is patterned after the El Portal turntable on the YV line. The turntable uses a Lazy Susan wheel arrangement underneath to turn the locomotive around. So you run the locomotive on the turntable and then you simply turn the wheel underneath to turn the locomotive back down the hill. This is a scratch-built turntable, and I didn't want to spend a lot of time on big linkages and stuff when this simple solution seems to work quite well. One of the big issues that I struggle with in the hobby is the amount of space that I have. We would all like to have a lot more space to do our hobby in. This room is 13 by 22, and given the size of this house, this was all the space that I could use for model railroading. So I had to become crafty in ways to utilize the space and get as much things in the area as I possibly could. And one of the ways I did that is by using pull-out workbenches like this one. There's 3 of them around the layout. This one has enough room that a model can be worked on and then pushed back underneath. There's a variety of other ways that I utilize in the room to try and get as much stuff crammed in here as I possibly can and still have room to move around by scooting them out of the way. Well, if you're still with us at this point, thank you for following along on our Willoughby Line tour. Hopefully this will inspire some of you maybe to go out and build some of your own models, and maybe someday we'll see one of your layouts on YouTube along with ours. Thank you.